Welcome to the Hout Bay Trail Challenge 2010. The atmosphere is electric at registration as 226 hardened trail runners get set for 36 kilometers of tough off-road running at the Hout Bay Trail Challenge. First and foremost, the runners are required to have their race passports scanned for timing purpose and to help keep a record of who is on the mountain. Essential packing of one's mandatory race equipment, energy drinks and gels, cell phone, space blanket, and a basic first aid kit are all important, along with the correct running gear. Trail shoes, trail shorts, and technical t-shirts all contribute to the success of one's race. With the sun still hiding behind the mountains, it's finally start time as the elite wave of runners line up first, each with a goal in mind, but knowing that in a race like this, so much can happen in the next 4 to 5 hours. To the oh-so-familiar sound of the vuvuzela blown by race founder Richard Sutton, the first group of runners are off. Behind the seated runners, the rest of the field sets out into the darkness and heads towards the first big climb of the day, the imposing Carbonkelberg and Souther Peaks that rise above the start at the Hout Bay Yacht Club.
It's 7:38 and I'm just waiting for Daniel to get here to complete leg 1, and I will then be running up the mountain for leg 2.
The course winds its way up into the mountains and then down towards Sandy Bay. It's technical, but Velocity Sports Lab Salomon team runner Ryan Scott is flying down the rocky bits just ahead of the leading individual men that include 2008 winner William Robinson, Akko Faggering, and adventure racer John Collins. But as last year's winner, do you feel there's added pressure this year to do better?
There's definitely pressure this year, not only from others but from myself, and I'm trying to ignore that pressure. Tomorrow I'll try and do the best race that I can.
Now, you're no stranger to long races. I mean, you've won the double puffer, you've won the puffer, you're going to be doing that long distance race with Ryan. Is that your speciality, or is that sort of a new direction for you?
Distance is definitely my speciality, but in saying that, Hout Bay Trail Challenge is a very special race because although it's 35 kilometers, it's not a long distance. The degree of technical difficulty of this race is such that it equates to a longer race. It's a great race for that, and it's, as many know, it's one of the more difficult races around.
Almost finished leg 1, leg 2 and 3 to go. The weather's playing with us. Nice and cool, cloudy, overcast, perfect running conditions.
After the tough first leg, Michael Bailey takes over from Ryan Scott and heads up Llandudno Ravine and the spectacular run along the 12 Apostles Mountains. Behind him, Faggering is putting down the hammer in the men's individual race as the runners take on fluids before heading out on the longest and hardest part of the course. Everyone is still in good spirits, and although much climbing still awaits, so does the splendor of the views that will greet them at the top of each of those climbs. Behind the leading group of men, triathlete Greg Goodall seems to be pacing himself well, hoping to pick up some places later on in the race. Mark Preen, co-founder and past winner, is the first veteran through Checkpoint 1 at Suikerbossie Restaurant. First lady through the checkpoint is Candice Davidson, running in the Cape Storm mixed team. In the ladies' race, Katja Soggett is still smiling, which is not surprising really. She's already in the lead in a strong women's field, with Lombardi, Doak and Tatum Prince all chasing hard. As the race makes its way up the quad-burning Llandudno Ravine, the leading men's team from Team Velocity Sports Lab Salomon is making it clear that they want that team record. Second leg runner Michael Bailey, winner of the Hunsa Old Fisherman's Trail Challenge in June this year, is dancing up the tough technical climb where concentration is just as important as strength. Behind Bailey, the leading individual men are locked in a three-way tussle as they climb Llandudno Ravine to the passport control point.
Yeah, it's definitely tricky with the tactics when it comes down to mixing up the individuals and the teams, because we all start together. So the team runners bolt out of the blocks, and the individuals don't always know who the team runners are. So they can make a mistake, and I think one of the guys did today, of trying to stick with the first runner, which at that stage was me. I was flying up trying to lose a couple of the other teams, and I managed to lose other teams. I didn't manage to lose the individuals, and I think they paid for it later on when they sort of ran out a bit of energy while I was kicking back in the clubhouse already because I'd only done one leg.
Katja Soggett was not making that mistake, despite taking the lead in the women's race and mixing it up with many of the top men. Relaxed and confident, this tough terrain was clearly where she was most happy.
Now, which is your favorite leg?
I probably enjoy the second leg best. It's the longer leg slightly, but it's the most scenic. And you're running on the back of Table Mountain, which is always such a privilege.
Who's going to give you the biggest run for your money tomorrow?
Michelle Lombardi.
Now, she is a formidable opponent. Have you guys done this race together before?
We've not competed against one another in this race, and Michelle is an incredibly capable runner, and she's quick and fast and very good on technicals. So, yeah, she's certainly going to keep me on my toes.
Now, you've competed internationally. How does this race and the scenery compare?
This race really is so special. I've raced in India in the Himalayas, which was fantastic. And I've raced in the Alps in France, but really there's nothing quite like Hout Bay. Not for its versatility of scenery, the privilege of running in a national park, in a World Heritage Site. It's very special, and I really would rate this as one of the best runs and routes in the world, surely.
Is there anything about this mountain that you're worried about tomorrow?
People say Flackenberg shouldn't have an L in it.
Well, the Flackenberg climb on the final leg was still quite a way off for most. Michael Bailey was setting a blistering pace up front. Behind him, the men's individual race was down to Akka Faggering, who last ran this race in 2005 before going to New Zealand and holds leg one's record. And the tough as nails, John Collins, a man who rarely likes losing. The two were pulling ahead of the rest of the individual field with every footfall as they headed to the halfway mark, knowing full well that this was becoming a mental battle between two very talented athletes.
Tatum, you're a multi-sport, multi-stage adventure racer. So how different is a race like this one?
This one is very hard. For me, it's a flat-out sprint. I'm much used to going for day and night, being a very kind of slow, steady, consistent pace. Whereas this, it's the gun goes and you go hell to leather for like 35 kilometers, which is quite tough.
Which leg is the most challenging for you?
Oh, the starts, without a doubt. When that gun goes, everyone goes flying up that mountain. That is definitely the hardest part for me. I don't mind the big climbs. Like once I've eased into leg 2 and 3, I'm actually getting stronger. That's kind of how I'm trained, mentally and physically. So yeah, that leg one is hard.
Prince was among the top 5 in the ladies' race, with Michelle Lombardi now chasing Katja Soggett in second place. Lombardi is an experienced competitor, but Soggart's early pace had been just too fast, and the rest of the ladies' field were battling to stay in touch as the course leveled out on the top of misty Table Mountain. Clearly, Soggart's pace wasn't bothering Prince, however, as she ran in third place along with defending champion Doak. For the rest of the field, the relative flats of Table Mountain were taking their toll on tired legs. Although the hard concrete of some of the footpaths around the dams that supply Cape Town with their water made running a little easier after all the rocks and loose gravel of the first half. After all the uphills, it was the steep downhills towards Constantia Neck that presented the next challenge, as aching quads were forced to adapt from steep climbs to juddering downhills that made them quiver with each step.
Now, it is regarded as one of the hardest races. Grant, you've raced it all 9 years that it's been there. Which has been the toughest one for you?
I think tomorrow is going to be the toughest.
You've described yourself as a middle of the field sort of runner. You're not going to challenge the winners, and you're certainly no novice. What is the spirit like within that sort of core social group?
It's been an amazing journey from 9 years ago, where we were complete strangers, and friendships have been fostered over the 9 years, where we've got to know people in trail running through other organizations that also do ad hoc weekend trail runs, like Craig, for example. And just to be able to give back to the sport and watch it grow with its rules and regulations that have come on board.
The descent to Constantia Neck, the second checkpoint, is not easy, and for some, it's a painful one. At the sharp end of the field, Michael Bailey was already running into the final changeover to hand over to Desert King Ryan Sands for the final leg and a crack at the team record. In the individual race, Faggering had made his move up front despite misgivings about his own fitness and had now managed to open a gap ahead of long-time rival John Collins. After some rapid hydration, Faggering was quickly on his way. Collins was looking strong, however, with a tough final leg still to run, a section where he could use his vast technical abilities. Behind him, Will Robinson looked to be suffering the effects of the fast pace and was starting to fall back.
Now, Ryan, this is your home turf, Hout
Yes.
Bay. How are you approaching this race?
Quite differently this year. I'm doing it as a team event, which is quite a difficult decision to make, but it's just because I've got quite a few events coming up at the end of this year. So, yeah, doing it in a team is kind of almost a bit of a letdown for me. I think I've done.
I think it's going to shock a lot of people.
Yeah, it's the last 3 years I've always done it as an individual, and it's a really tough race. I think maybe one of the reasons why I'm doing it is in a team this year is just last year I really suffered. I think running the last leg, running up Flackenberg, I was in all sorts of trouble last year. Kind of is really tough.
I mean, people will be amazed hearing that from you. I mean, you are recognized as being our absolute phenomenon when it comes to trail running. This is a tough race, though.
Yeah, as I said last year, I think kilometre for kilometre, I think it's one of the toughest races you can do, if not the toughest race in South Africa. Just there's so much elevation change, and it's really technical, and the course changes the whole time. So that makes it extremely tough.
And tough it really was, as the final big climb of the day, up Flackenberg towards Hout Bay, was pure torture. At times it was a scramble and most could barely run, but it is this climb that defines how hard the Hunter Hout Bay Challenge really is. This is not a race for the faint-hearted. Control points are laid along the route to ensure all runners remain on the same path. On the descent, SA's greatest trail runner, Ryan Sands, was doing what he does best and was flying towards the finish. Ensuring he clips his passport, before continuing to avoid a time penalty. Now, second in the race, Derek Bart from Team Hammer Nutrition had moved up fast ahead of the individual men. That race was being led by Akka Faggering, who had opened up the gap over Collins.
Right, Richard, a lot of people blame you for starting this race in the first place. Tell me a little bit about the history.
Well, it goes back to 2001, where the whole idea, where Mark Preen and myself discussed about a trail run in Hout Bay. And in 2001 we discussed it and came up with a route in 2002 where we ran the first one, where we had 25 or 26 crazy runners as they were for that day. Because I think it's probably, going back, that day was the worst weather we've ever had for the history of Hout Bay Trail Challenge.
With the finish in sight but still a long way to go, women's leader Katja Soggett looked in control as she headed down Chapman's Peak along the rocky paths. But like Soggett, all the runners behind and in front of her still got the chance to enjoy the breathtaking view while running in this unique Fynbos wonderland. This truly is a spectacular route, and just the reward everyone needed as they made their way down towards the final stretch along the beach. In second place in the ladies' race was Michelle Lombardi, showing the calm and skill of a seasoned trail runner as she made the descent down towards Hout Bay, although a good 12 minutes behind Soggett. Defending champion Linda Doak was now down to fourth in the strong women's field, but nevertheless made the descents look graceful as she danced down the rocky path. For the individual runners, this final section required concentration and strength. Tired quads make these descents tough and dangerous, and for some, the downhills are sometimes more challenging than the ups. The key is to stay light, keep your eyes focused ahead of you, and be careful not to twist an ankle. But it is what true trail running is all about, a constant physical and mental challenge, no matter where you are in the field.
Are you using this as preparation for which race?
Yeah, I've got a few or one or two local races coming up, like the Puffer, and then I'm actually going off to do the Trans Alpine Run with last year's female winner Linda Doak in the Alps. So yeah, that's kind of one of my main focuses, and then finishing off the 4 Desert Series at the end of the year with Antarctica. So yeah, I've got quite a busy schedule, so unfortunately I have to chicken out and do this in a team.
Now, since you've had such massive exposure both locally and internationally,
yes,
has the pressure on you to perform in a race changed? Do you feel that when you're at the starting line?
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously I do quite a few, say, shorter 10K trail runs and stuff like that, and then I think people always expect you to go out and win those too, when probably my speciality is only more the multi-day or the longer kind of 80K runs. So yeah, I definitely do feel a lot more pressure.
But while this may be a short run for elite athletes like Ryan Sands, for most of the field, each leg of the Hansa Hout Bay Trail Challenge is tough. For many of the runners, finding the time to train is difficult, and as they descended down into the finish at Hout Bay, every runner felt a sense of pride, knowing that they had conquered one of the toughest one-day trail races in the world. At the East Fort Cannons, it's Sands who sprints into the final checkpoint with a team record now certain. The only thing he is chasing now is a sub 1 hour time for this tough final leg. Akko Fuggering has opened up the gap in the individual men's race, while the ever-smiling Katja Soggett leads the ladies' individual race with a clear lead over second place Michelle Lombardi. At the finish, Sands sprints home to become the first runner to break an hour for the final leg and take his team to a record-setting victory. Akko Fuggering strides along the final beach leg as he heads towards breaking Ryan Sands' individual record by an amazing 6 minutes. And this for a man who doubted his fitness coming into the event. Behind him, the brave but tired John Collins makes his way to the finish after his long battle with Fuggering for the overall lead. Just behind him, Greg Goodall has paced himself superbly and grabs a fast finishing third to establish himself as a future contender. In fourth, Will Robinson is glad to be finally at the finish. After hanging with the leaders in the first half, he has battled in the final leg. In the women's individual race, Katja Soggett has led from the start and has smiled the whole way along the course to break Jeannie Bamford's record by over 10 minutes.
No, I really didn't expect anything of today other than to have a lovely race. I've been loving running lately, beautiful weather, and that's just wonderful. I didn't have any idea that what the record was or how I was doing. I had a sense that I had a comfortable lead on the next lady, which is always good because then I could enjoy it. And it just came and went.
It was an exceptional day at the 2010 Hunter Hout Bay Trail Challenge as all the major records tumbled on a perfect day for trail running.
We had a record that we had set our sights on, which was I think 4:06, which was a good record set last year in 2009, and we decided to give it a huge whine to actually take on the record and see if we could better it.
So I was doing the third leg, so luckily we had quite a big lead going into the third leg, so there was no major pressure. But I was quite keen to try and have a go at the individual leg record. So I pushed really hard and managed to scrape in just under an hour.
The vegetation was quite wet, so running through the vegetation was quite overgrown and my shoes got quite wet and heavy. So I had to deal with that. So I was pleased with my run.
And I think we broke the record by about 27 minutes or so. So all in all, good day at the office.
Yeah, it went a lot better than I was expecting. I wasn't planning on running. I only entered on Tuesday after a mate of mine pulled out. Because I hadn't really thought I'd got enough training in this year. It's a really varied course. It's a great course. It's probably the sort of most real trail running course in the Cape because it's all off-road, it's all trail. As soon as you're off the road in the first few minutes, it's all pretty technical.
So it was Akko Fuggering that took the win in record time, with Collins holding on to second ahead of the fast finishing Goodall. In the ladies' individual event, Katja Soggett used her downhill skills to break the record and lead home a strong field. Team Velocity Sports Lab Salomon shattered the course record by almost half an hour. Ladies team Hammer Fleet Feet also smashed the record by 22 minutes. Thank you for watching the Hunter Hout Bay Trail Challenge 2010.